Welcome to today's episode of Office Hours. I will be your game master for today. Actually, we're not playing any games. We're just going to talk about games. This is Office Hours. I'm here. You're here. I'm dressed up. I don't know what you look like, but I bet you look great. This is episode number 32 of Office Hours. And what, may you ask, is Office Hours? Why, let me tell you. Office Hours is a show in which you ask me questions about game mastering. Well, not you, not present you. Present you has missed the boat on today's episode. Present you is standing on the dock, ticket in hand, and the Office Hours ship has sailed, but never fear, the Office Hours ship will return for you. If you have questions for the show, you want me to answer your questions, you just go to my website on the internet using your favorite internet browser, or one you don't like. I don't care. That's up to you. Put in the URL. It's the thing at the top. www.adam-cole.com. Click that Office Hours link. There's a form there. You can fill out that form. And when you hit the submit button, it will transport that information magically to me. And then I will be able to read your question. And away we go. That's how it works. So today's questions come to us from the distant past of some time ago, and they're questions about how to be a better game master, which is great because that's the purpose of the show. So good work this week, team. Good job. Good work. Let's check these questions out, shall we? Let us begin with question the first.
Hello, Adam. My name is Shellbell02. I am new to being a GM, and I'm still pretty new to role-playing games in general. I have played some D&D 5th edition with my boyfriend and our group of friends, and I was inspired by it and started looking around for some actual play videos on YouTube. That is when I found your GMing on Roll20. Through watching you GM all of these different games other than D&D, I started loving all of those different role-playing games like The Burning Wheel, Mouse Guard, Dungeon World, etc. My problem is that some of my friends don't seem all too interested in delving into the world of different role-playing games. I'm worried that if I try to run a game of, let's say, Mouse Guard, for instance, that it will be so far from what they're expecting that they will not enjoy it. Do you have any hints on this matter? Any help you could give is great help. Thank you.
So I would like to thank Shellbell02 first and foremost for either intentionally or accidentally throwing that inspiration pun in there. Nice work, Shellbell. So I guess here's the thing, right? Like, this is really cool. I like this question a lot because I think it's a common problem. I think entrenchment is a thing in gaming groups, new and old. And I'd love to address it. I think the thing is, the real sort of relevance here is that, we live in an age, we live in an era, this is an epoch of discovery for many tabletop role-playing gamers, right? This question has always been true. It's always been real. It's always been a question that people have needed to answer about their groups. GMs often need to know how to help encourage players to try new things. You want to broaden your repertoire as a game master, and it can be hard to do, right? But the thing is, right now, we're living in this age where, because of the internet, because of Twitch and YouTube, and the let us not understate the hard work that podcasters, actual play podcasters, big ups to the podcasters for laying the groundwork for actual play in a recorded format. Because of all this stuff, because of Roll20 Presents in this case, players of games, hopeful players of games, are in a position to look at what other people are doing and say, God dang, I want to do that. Look at that beautiful thing. Look at that game. Look at those tiny mice and their swords fighting that giant crab to protect the mouse territories. I want that. I want to be there. My group, however, might need a little encouraging. And the way this happens, and I'm hoping this culture of sharing, this culture of actual play helps alleviate this problem to some degree. But often what happens is that those of us to whom the responsibility of game mastering falls become the ones with the largest expertise and understanding of games. This is just how it has been done. The game master has been in a position over time to be the person with a larger, more responsible role than the players. And this is purely social. This isn't built into every game inherently. This is just something that happens as an emergence from the myth that the GM, it's their job to know every rule and nuance of the rule book, right? It's not real. That is not a true statement about games, right? What happens is that the GM, more often than not, is the one who buys the first copy of the rules, suggests the game to the group, and becomes the one responsible for manufacturing, shall we say, for lack of a better term, hype about a game at the table. It also tends to mean that when we, and by we I mean myself and you, Shellbell, and other GMs in the same position, it tends to mean that when we get tired of running the same game, right? We get our feelings for 5th edition begin to wane. That Champions game is perhaps not looking so exciting anymore to us. Or maybe we just want to branch out. Maybe we just want to try something new because new things are fun, because humans desire novelty. We're the ones responsible for driving that change, which can be tricky because you're fighting against a big pile of momentum, right? The same things that make a tabletop role-playing game something that we want to play over and over. The thing that drives us back to the table is the exact same thing that you, my dear friend, are struggling with right now. Role-playing games are, at their core, about persistence of experience. Let's talk about persistence of experience. We play the same characters. We experience the same worlds. Sometimes we play the same characters in the same worlds over and over and over again. We add hours and hours to our roster of play. We desire a continuity of experience. How many times do you hear gamers, tabletop role-playing gamers, brag about how long they've been playing the same game, right? That's a trope. That's a trope. When we talk about role-playing games with each other, we often say, oh, I've been playing the same Dungeons and Dragons game with the same people, with the same characters for 6 years. As we play, we learn new things about the setting in which our game is placed. We learn about our characters. We learn about the rules. And the things that endear us to, or at the very least emotionally attach us to the worlds we experience, come from repeated play. And we want to keep that. The more familiar we are with the characters, the more invested we are in the game. And on top of all that, rules, learning a rule set, playing by the structures of a game, especially a complex one, invests us in continued play of that game, right? We feel like we've made all this effort to learn the game, so why switch? In a lot of ways, this is kind of a funny marketing thing, actually, when it comes to tabletop games. Right? Because think about it this way. A designer, and by this I mean usually a company, Paizo, Wizards, whatever. A designer of a game for whom the game is a business wants you to play their game and play it often. They want you to engage with that game enough to learn it so that you will want to expand on it and buy supplements and evangelize it so that other folks will play it because it's your game and you've learned the rules and maybe now it's time to GM, and so you want to find other people to play and then you want to teach them the game so they evangelize it to other people. There's kind of a pyramid scheme angle to games. It's not necessarily on purpose, but it's a thing. And what's weird is that a more complex rule set has a higher barrier to entry than an easier one, but tends to retain players better. Creates a sense of mechanical loyalty. I know it has for me, right? I know I'm good at certain games, and that's part of what I like about them. I want to play the games that I'm good at, because a challenging experience, which is to say learning a rule set, once overcome, is transmuted into a positive memory and an emotional attachment to that game. Character, campaign, mechanisms learned. When you're up against all of that, you know, your group is entrenched with certain expectations of what an RPG ought to feel like, or they have a favorite system, or in your specific case, maybe a limited experience or a limited willingness to experiment. How do you encourage trying new things, especially when they can seem out of the ordinary? How does one teach a group of vampire LARPers to play Paranoia? How does one teach GURPS military simulationists how to play Mouse Guard? Right? And, you know, all this is predicated on the assumption that you're okay still. I'm talking to you specifically, Shale Bell. This is predicated on the assumption that you are okay playing D&D as your main thing, right? You're still cool with 5th edition. As you said yourself, inspired by it. You're not, like, totally hating that experience and feeling desperate to change it. You're not like, fuck D&D, I need to get away from this. Give me something different, right? I'm assuming this is a, I would like to try, not a, I will throw myself off a bridge if I ever hear the phrase Eldritch Blast again situation. If that's the situation, it's different. You need to stop playing 5e and just say, I'm sick of this. That's your answer. Say, I don't want to play this anymore. If you guys want me to GM Boyfriend and Company, I would like to GM something different. So I'm going to assume that you're still okay with D&D, that you like it, right? So I think the main thing you can do here is be cognizant, and this is true of introducing new things really into... Here we are again, finding ourselves in a space where Office Hours is a show about advice for dealing with other humans. But the main thing to do here is consider the timing of your suggestion. There are appropriate and inappropriate times during which this kind of suggestion can come up, because people will react differently in different contexts. Now, you're a game master. Part of your job is manipulating people. You've learned a thing or two about manipulating your players. Lean into that. Lean into that skill set. So here's the thing, right? If you've just had a big cliffhanger session, if you're just like, and the terrible wizard lord removes his cloak of disguise, and underneath you see, then that's it for the session. We'll find out next week. Or if you're in a situation where everybody in the party has just leveled up, you finally reached level 3, and they're all super excited to finally use their new abilities. Those are bad times to do this. Don't try to change streams then. You will not find yourself in a position to get what you want. So if your games are anything like mine, and I'm going to assume a shared experience of some kind, because we're all playing by the same rules when we play these games, more or less, they're going to fall into natural arcs. People desire the rising action. People desire conflict resolution. They desire the denouement. There will likely be boundaries of significant milestones within your game, conclusions, tying up of certain threads, the end of a particular sub-narrative that emerges in play, and when you reach the end of one of these, usually everyone is in the same place feeling that thing. It's not like one person says, cool, this is the end of an arc, and everyone else is like, what are you talking about? We're midway through the second season of our game. Usually you're all on the same page. You can kind of feel that, and this can be a good time to bring up a potential change. Tell your players, you're going to need a few weeks to work up the next arc, and in the meantime, maybe you can try this other game that you've been interested in and that you saw Adam and Dave and Blue Jay and Elf and Andrew playing. Maybe it's time to try something new. right? While we are in between seasons. Something else that you can do is wait for an opportunity to drop in a one-shot. One-shots are the just let's try it once, see if you like it. One-shots are the first one is free of tabletop role-playing games. And you can do these when, and I've offered this advice to other people before, when a player can't make a game. A lot of groups have pre-existing policies in place as part of the social construct for this stuff, right? Like if someone can't make it, maybe someone else plays their character. They have a stand-in, a proxy, right? Or maybe you just cancel and play board games. Whatever it might be, posit a one-shot of this thing. Now, a lot of the games you discussed, I mean, Luke will disagree with me, but Burning Wheel I don't find does very well as a one-shot. The Sword is kind of a fun thing, but try something simpler, right? Mouse Guard is great for a one-shot. You can do a GM turn, a player turn, a GM turn, a player turn, and be done with it. You can construct a fairly straightforward Mouse Guard scenario that you can play out in a 4 or 5 or 6 or 3 hour session, depending on what your normal sessions look like. The thing is, like, crafting that in advance and putting it in your pocket can be hard, right? Because as soon as you prep something, you want to play it, but prep something. And then when you are missing a player or when you have the opportunity to introduce it, like when a player is missing or something has changed about your usual schedule, this is a good opportunity to drop in a one-shot. And one-shots serve you especially well because, like, there's another side to that whole the GM is the one that knows the game thing. There's a powerlessness that comes from being a player, and I want to talk about that. So if you're a player in a role-playing game, and I think that a lot of groups are structured this way, the GM knows all the rules, the GM is responsible for driving the game forward, the GM is the one to look to ask, what do I do in this situation? Or I don't understand this page, or you've read this and I haven't read the whole book. When you're in that position, GMs, I think, like to look at players that don't learn the rules as being, I don't know, like lazy or they look at them as being uncommitted. And while I think that can certainly be true, if you look at it from the player's perspective, it's a helpless situation sometimes. Because you can have this nagging fear that despite your investment in the narrative, if you just don't learn the rules, or you just don't know that much about role-playing games, or you're not as passionate about them, maybe that you have other things you care about, there is a nagging fear, or there can be, that the GM is just going to suddenly up and quit, and you will not be allowed to play your character anymore. The worry about switching systems is similar to that. Some players have a fear that if the GM wants to try something new, the player won't like it, but will be forced to play. Because, you know, the GM is the one that gets to decide these things. You've got a long-running group, right? You've been playing a game you like. So you've been playing, I don't know. Let's think of a game that you like. Maybe you like Vampire. Maybe you and your group, you like Vampire, okay. You've learned Vampire well enough to play it. You're not super invested in the rules. You don't have any desire to GM. And then your Vampire game master, your storyteller, says, I hate Vampire. I'm sick of this shit. We're going to play Dungeons and Dragons. Now, you're not ready to take over. You're not ready to be the game master. No one is. And suddenly you're not allowed to play Vampire anymore. You have to find another group. That can be really scary. And when you, as the GM, Shellbell02, when you say, hey, y'all, can we try Mouse Guard? There's going to be someone in your group who's like, this looks stupid. I love Dungeons and Dragons. What are you doing? Why? I don't want to do this. I'm scared. What they're really saying is that they're scared to try new things. People who are scared to try new things need to get the fuck over themselves. Maybe you can't tell your players that. Maybe you can't be like, get the fuck over yourselves, players. Put on your mouse capes. God damn it. But keep in mind that that's a fear that they're going to have. And with a one-shot, you can say, hey, you know what? It's okay. Don't be scared. This is only temporary, and it might be fun. I want to find out what you think. It feels a lot less like, this is the new thing we're doing. This is the new thing, and that thing that you like, fuck it, throw it out. You can't do that anymore. I'm not taking away the thing that you love. I'm just showing you something that I'm interested in, and maybe you will also love it. Positing a new game to your group, positing the play of a new game, is reorienting your group dynamic around a new activity. And new activities can be weird, even if they're peripheral to something you're already familiar with. It takes trust to do creative things together, and knowing when to suggest change is an important skill here, being gentle with your players. I know it sounds patronizing, and maybe it is a little. Maybe we need to patronize our players occasionally. But honestly, I think that gentleness of timing is really important. Something else that you can do to help you in this regard is pick the right game to suggest. You have to know your group, and it's going to take a little bit of work, knowing games in general and knowing the group. But that's tied to our second question directly. So let's just jump right into question number 2.
Hey Adam, when trying to direct a campaign outside of Dungeons & Dragons focus, you often recommend trying a new system. How can I find a system that works for my group's goal?
So there you go, right? Mouse Guard might not be the game for Shellbell02's group. John, Mouse Guard might not be the game for your group, or it might be. How do you know? How does one know? Right? Let's talk about why you would want to play different games. Playing new role-playing games is an experience I would liken to, if you'll pardon me being hyperbolic. I don't actually think there's hyperbole here, but I think playing new games is like visiting foreign countries or trying new cuisine. I think it will make you a better person to play more role-playing games. I think it's that important. If you care about RPGs, playing a bunch of different role-playing games will make you a better person because you'll be better at the thing that you love, and people who are good at the things that they love tend to feel more fulfilled, and you will be happier. Doesn't that sound great? Now, let's talk about why that is, right? I think the real thing here is that at the very core, broad experiences are good for everyone. And on the macro level, doing lots of different things gives you a new and interesting way to look at the world at large. Playing lots of different RPGs will give you a more nuanced palette when you look at role-playing games in general. Playing them, reading them, discussing them, engaging with them in any real meaningful way. You want to be the cultured, well-read game master about town, don't you? So try new games. And it's easy for me to say, right? Just try them. Just try new games. Go, do it. But as John pointed out, it may be harder to do because unlike learning to appreciate French wine or taking a trip to the mountains of Tibet, you need a group of other willing people to go along with you. You cannot play a role-playing game alone. You cannot experience a role-playing game alone. You can read an RPG book, you can read books by yourself, but you can't play a game on your own. You need other people, and for most people, this means exposing yourself to a brand new group as a sort of tourist in a space that's already familiar to that group, right? Joining a new group whose pet game is one you want to learn about as a fairly common experience. I would like to learn how to play Shadowrun. Hello. Do you like Shadowrun? Why, yes, we do. Shadowrun is our favorite game. Would you like to join us? Why, yes, I would. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Come on in. Role-playing. That's a common experience, but so is convincing your existing group to try something new, as Shellbell02 is attempting to do in this situation. Now, I could have said to Shellbell, well, fuck your group. Go play Mouse Guard with some other people who already like Mouse Guard, but that's not always what you want to do. Sometimes you want to play a new thing with your existing friends. As with all things, I'm going to have to assume some stuff about your situation. But here's the thing, I think both of these are valid approaches, right? Joining a new group, making your own group, whatever. But we're We're going to assume more generally that you're looking to introduce an existing social dynamic to new games, because I think that might be more common and is actually about, it's an answerable question, because the answer to joining a new group is just join the group. Anyway, let's assume that we begin with a conversation, because I think most of these things are like that. We start by talking. So talk to the people that you're going to be playing with. And I don't mean talk to them as a GM. I just mean as people interested in trying something new. I assume that they're willing to try a new thing and that you're all buying into this situation together, saying we want to find a new game to play. Creative people who have ideas, who want to play a game together, who are having a conversation. Now, because you asked, I'm going to assume that you're the one facilitating that conversation. Right? But everyone's going to work together to get what you need out of it. So start by talking about the kinds of things that are exciting to you right now. And not just in role-playing games, but like, what have you been reading? What have you been listening to? What have you been watching? Start with people's passions. Now, this might be weird. People might not feel like comfortable talking about the things they're excited about outside of a context of role-playing, especially if that's the only social interaction you have. But try it. You know, share something first. Be like, this is a thing that I'm interested in right now. So I think the thing here is that passion is the best place to start when the question is creativity, right? And that's what a role-playing game is. It's being creative. So start with people's passions. Maybe someone in the group in your conversation has been rereading Ghost in the Shell, right? Maybe they've seen the trailer for the new movie that's coming out and they're thinking about, you know, military ops and robots and world politics and cybernetic dystopias. Maybe that's a thing that they're passionate about. They're following that desire. Maybe another player has been going through like an early 80s dark wave phase, and all they listen to right now is Susie and the Banshee and you know, listening to British goth, and that's where their head's at right now. Whatever anyone is excited about, don't just ask about the thing, right? Give them space to talk about what they're excited about and ask why. Ask what about it excites them. Dig into that. Figure out themes. Find the deeper thing, right? We don't just like Spider-Man because he's Spider-Man. Don't take "'cause it's cool" for an answer. We like Spider-Man because he's a teenage nerd, and maybe we were teenage nerds. Maybe we like his sense of responsibility. Maybe we like the lightheartedness of his sense of humor. There are things about the media we consume that we love that are not just music sound good, movie fun, food delicious, right? What do you like about the things that you like? This is a skill you already have, game masters. This is a skill you already have. You do it when you prep sessions. We've talked about this before. This is your ability to turn your media environment into component pieces for use in your game. This is the dissolving media in acid to find its component pieces. Turn your skill on the people in the room. Ask questions, get Socratic, take notes, help them find what it is that they love about the things that they love. I don't love cyberpunk, right? I'm a fan of the genre of cyberpunk, but what I love are its themes of struggle against oppression. I love its themes of humanity versus machinery. I love its themes of what makes us people in the face of crushing capitalistic pressure. Those are the things that I care about. And you can apply those to other forms of media, which makes them easier to mix and match with other people's desires. And what you're going to end up with, is a conversation about something new. You'll find common threads. You'll understand why Dark Wave and Ghost in the Shell and Spider-Man, and you'll find out why those things have stuff in common and what the people like about them. And that's the idea for your campaign. Those will be feelings about themes and settings that you would like to explore. You're going to start developing a situation. And once that's starting to happen, once you have that core premise, you can start looking for a game that's going to do those things for you. Now, this is going to require you either have a relatively encyclopedic understanding of games on paper, even if you haven't played them before, right? This is going to mean you're well-read. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh shit, I'm not, don't worry, we'll get to that angle. But this approach needs you to understand a bunch of stuff about different games Because when you take that core concept, right? Slightly depressing, dystopic superheroes, but with a sense of like dark humor, even when things are at their worst. When you take that core concept, you go looking for a game, you're going to have to answer the 3 questions, right? What is this game about? How is it about that? How are the players rewarded for doing those things? Because you need those answers to align with the concept of your game. If you want a game that's about a dystopian future in which hope is the rarest of all commodities and mutant survivals battle their corporate overlords for the scraps of what remains, you need a game that can approximate that in play. The game should be about the things you want your campaign to be about. If it's not, you're going to fall short. You're not going to like it. If you try to take that concept and play it using Dungeons and Dragons, you're going to hate yourself to death. Or you're going to have to do a lot of work. And I don't know, for you, maybe that's okay. There's an entire branch of developed games that is all about the players and the GM doing most of the work. They call it the OSR. I find it mostly tiresome. I like games that help and don't just mechanically resolve things. So it's not a shot at the OSR, but it does a particular thing, and that's fine if you want to bring all that to the table yourself. But I don't think the game gets credit for that, and this is about picking the right game. I could tell you to just go and play, I mean, anything, if you have to do all the work, right? Hack D&D. Okay. Problem solved. Go do it, right? But you want to find a game that will help you. You want to find a game that's going to do some of the heavy lifting for you. This approach works best if you have a group that gets really excited about stuff, and if you know a fair number of games, because you and the group need to know what is what to be able to pair desire and game. Now, if you're just getting started, if you're more in Shellbell's situation where you know that some games exist, but you would like to figure out which one to play together, you're going to need to take a slightly different approach. So you can try this instead. So sit down with your group and talk to them about the kinds of games that they enjoy. Literally just ask them. Have that conversation like over pizza or whatever. Say, what kind of RPGs have you enjoyed and why? And if they've only ever played a few RPGs, say, what kinds of other games have you enjoyed and why? Do that same thing, right? Ask them, what about the games do they like? Why do they like those games? You might find that everybody has had a similar positive experience with games that are mostly fiction first. Maybe they've played Apocalypse World. Maybe they've played other games like it, and they all kind of like that style of play. That's a great place to start. You might find your group likes rules-focused games, right? They like all the games with many moving pieces. Maybe you'll find that your gamers prefer games that are lighter, with no dice at all, and instead like bidding games and bluffing mechanics. You want to learn about their process of attaching to games. And again, like with any situation in which you are the GM, asking good questions is how you get good information out of your players. This way you can come at that selection of choices more mechanically than fictionally. I think it's fun going at it this way because it's so backwards to how most people choose games. Most people come at them setting first. Who wants to play a game? What do you want to play? Oh, you want to play a game about King Arthur. Well, Pendragon, right? The setting often comes first. If you talk to your group, you follow their passions, either media passions or game passions, and learn a few things about what you're after, you don't have to do it alone. Because what I'm doing here is I'm helping you get ready for the next step. And that's not you pick a game and then you play it. The next step is, because we live in this beautiful age, the next step is go to whatever online community that you go to for RPG chat, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Google+, whether it's the Math Squad Discord, whatever it might be, you've now got information in hand to ask smart questions of your support network, your GM support network, of which I am happy to be a part. Thank you, John. Here's why coming to that space with preparedness is so important. And nerds, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna talk some shit, nerds. I hope you're ready. People in the role-playing game community have a nasty, nasty habit of just suggesting people play their favorite game, whatever the question. People will do this. You may go to them and say, hey, my group has been really into Game of Thrones lately. What role-playing game do you think I should do to play that? Thank you. This will get you fucking terrible answers. Hey, you should play Pathfinder. Here's my 100-page homebrew that stats out all the NPCs from Game of Thrones and adds a new social combat mechanic. It's really good. Have I play tested it? No. Oh, you should play Fate or GURPS or Savage Worlds because they can do anything. You should only play officially licensed games. The Game of Thrones RPG is the only officially licensed Game of Thrones role-playing game, so NERPs. Listen, Game of Thrones sucks. You should just play whatever my favorite game is because it's good. Play Fiasco. Just play Fiasco instead. It's better. Game of Thrones sucks. If you know what to ask, and you know how to ask follow-up questions, you can get through to a really solid suggestion with a little bit of work. Instead of asking, how do I Game of Thrones? Ask, my players and I are interested in playing a game that can do medieval dynastic role-playing in a world that has a little bit of magic, but is mostly like kind of down to earth and gritty. We like having some flexibility around being able to bend or hack the rules, but we're not afraid of big, thick rule books. We want to learn mastery. This is going to be a campaign. We want to settle in for something for the long term. That is a much better question. And when people suggest their pet RPG, when someone is like, play Savage Worlds, you can say to them, why, friend? In what way does Savage Worlds support me? Support your argument. I am curious. Because then, when they answer, you'll be able to interpret the answers for your group. You know, above and beyond all that business, the biggest thing you can do when you pick a game for your group is don't be scared to fuck it up. You're gonna play bad games. You're gonna get lured in to trying to do fucking Game of Thrones with Savage Worlds. And everyone at your table is going to hate it, except that one person who will love it for some insane reason. And I forget it, right? Like, it's fine. It's okay to play bad games. I will tell you this right now, right? This year is going to be my... I guess it'll be my 20th anniversary of playing role-playing games. Maybe more. I've been playing games for a fucking long time. And in that time, I have played far more shitty role-playing games than I've played good ones. Hours and hours and hours of garbage. And that's okay. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's not the end of the world. You can play a game, you can realize it's trash, you can throw it out. I get that there's a fiscal cost attached to this, that you're supporting people who make games, and that it can suck having given money to someone who makes a game that you don't like or want to play anymore. But I mean, that's how it goes. That's a thing. And it's okay. It's not your fault as the GM because you suggested it. You're all going to buy in and try it together, and maybe it's bad. And the thing is that what you want to be able to do as a group is bite that off before it takes too long. Don't realize in session 20 that you hate the game. Realize in session 1. And hurl it out the window, right? Because as you learn more about role-playing games, you will recognize when a game is a good fit faster and when it isn't, and you will waste less and less time. You will not spend hundreds of hours playing White Wolf games before you're like, wait a second, I hate this. The less you know about role-playing games, the harder this is. The more discerning you become, the more you can see past bullshit like marketing and bad design and frothing fandom. And you'll learn what kinds of games you really like. At this point, and this is me bragging, but I think I've earned it, I can look at a game, I can pick it up, I can flip through the rules, I can visit a few spare chapters, and I can determine, I would say with like a pretty high percentage chance of success, like, I'd say most of the time I can determine whether or not I am going to like a game in play by reading it. Now, it's not 100%, but I've done this enough that I'm at a point where I can look at a game and say, yes, this is going to be fun, or no, I'm not going to like this, right? 10 or 20 pages into a game, I know this. And I'm really, really thankful for the development of that skill. It saved me a lot of wasted time. And that comes from reading, playing, and understanding games through practice and talking to players and learning what they like. Because playing role-playing games is synthesis. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. I hope that helps. I hope that puts you in a position, both Shellbell02 and our asker of this question, John. I hope that it puts you in a position to jump into a game that is new without it being too terrifying. So our last question is about playing the game. It's about actually applying some practice to a game. And yeah, I think it's an interesting question because my answer is very different from most people's, I think. So let's give it a listen.
Hello, I'm Excelsior Loy on Twitch, and I'm a fairly new GM, and I've just been kind of having trouble figuring out how to properly pace my sessions. So I really feel like some of my sessions are really tense and fun, and we get a lot done, and some sessions are just boring and nothing seems to happen. So I was wondering if you could speak to how to pace your game.
Pacing. We look for it in tabletop role-playing games because we are unconsciously aware of it in other media. We can tell. People talk about movies. They say the pacing was good. People talk about TV shows. Oh, season 1 was good, but the pacing was a bit off in the mid-season, right? So we look at role-playing games and we feel when the pace slows or when we're being too aggressive and pushing along too quickly. And in a perfect world, in a completely perfect world, the game that you're already playing is telling you how to do this. The game is informing you of how many beats, scenes, roles, conflicts, whatever, work together to make the pacing of the game feel right. In a perfect world, the designers of the game have given you some advice on when to change scenes, when to move on to a new thing, and how much stuff to jam into a session. But this is not a perfect world, right? And it's not... I love blaming game designers for things. Game designers, you bunch of fuck-ups, it's all your fault. But not this time. See, not this time. In this instance, it's not the designer's fault. It's just that pacing requires too many variables to really make it easily designed around. And we'll talk about some games that prove me wrong, but hear me out. So pacing is dependent on a lot of things. The mechanisms of the game itself, but not just the mechanisms of the game, but people's mastery of them, right? Compare and contrast the pacing of, say, Dave playing Dungeons and Dragons versus, say, Max in the first few episodes of Court of Swords, right? Player mastery creates a faster pace at the table. Even if it's not a narrative pace, the beats of the table, the moment-to-moment snaps of each thing come from system mastery in a lot of ways. The genre will dictate pacing, right? Tense political thriller, high action adventure, personal drama, horror. They all carry their own pacing. The lengths of your session dictate pacing. Do you have 2 hours you rush through? Do you have 6 hours you take your time? How often do you take breaks? These things aren't often designed around. The intended and practical length of the campaign overall. Do we know that this game fizzles after 12 episodes? The fact that I call them episodes is going to indicate some stuff about my answer real quick. But, you know, all of that on top of the preferences of your individual players. Some players like it fast. Some players like to take it slow. Sometimes you have an Andrew and a Dave in the same game. And that's great. That's good. You want that. Because diversity of experience creates diversity of play. And that's fine. But it can be hard. It can be very hard as a GM. Now, for me, in my direct and very recent experience, it specifically boiled down. I don't think about pacing outside of these parameters. Pacing is laid out regardless of what game I'm playing, and I often choose the game to fit the pacing because I don't have a choice around pacing. Here is how I pace my games. We warm up for 20 minutes. There's bullshit talk. We talk about media. What games have you been playing? Oh, these games. What movies have you watched? Oh, these. Let's laugh about stuff. Okay, good. We're warmed up. Let's play a role-playing game for 40 minutes. Let's take a 5-minute break. Let's play a role-playing game for an hour. Let's take a 5-minute break. Let's do that again twice. Let's do shout-outs. Now we're done. All of the RPGs that I play right now are paced to more or less these constraints. And no designer could have known that. So this isn't designers' faults necessarily. I suppose, and I think that this will happen, given time, it could be possible, perhaps even desirable, to create a game that says, after an hour of time has passed, take a break. At this point, you will have had 10 to 20 rolls. Each character should have advanced once, and mechanisms. Or, once all the characters at the table have advanced, take a break. When you return, change the scene. Now, I know that there are games that do this. Games like Montsegur 1244, very intentionally paced. Fiasco, relatively intentionally paced. One person sets the scene, one person ends it. There's not a lot of information about when to do those things, but the pacing is there. Tenrybansho Zero has some of that in there. Parlor LARPs, Nordic LARPs, often do exactly this thing. This is a 90-minute game. At minute 45, this happens. But tabletop in general tends to be looser in this regard, and most of you aren't on as strict a schedule as I am. So I'm going to treat the rest of this question from my experience prior to mostly streaming. We're going to talk about it from there. You know, I think the thing is your game is going to vary. As the GM, you're going to be the one that's often looked to do what is often referred to as scene framing. In some cases, though, to be fair, scene framing, when I see that in a modern role-playing game, I can tell that it's built on a kind of earlier philosophical stance scene framing has sort of fallen out of favor in role-playing game, in modern design. It might make a comeback, but right now it's not really a thing. But you might be playing an old game. If you're looking for a more detailed discussion of scene framing, you should see a previous episode of this show. I really need to index this shit. Bad production, Adam. But go back and find that episode. Fake Alex Blue is on it. His voice is very nice to listen to. It's a great episode. So anyway, if you're interested in scene framing, check that out. Instead, what you're going to have to do right now, you and your group are going to have to work out pacing together. I'm going to suggest you look to your game and your experience with it, because for me, the game is always the first place to look for advice about how to play it. And in a game like, say, Mouse Guard, which we've talked about this episode, you can pace the game easily by looking at the number of tests being made. You can take breaks when you switch from the GM turn to the player turn. You can use the game to pace itself. That's easy. Mouse Guard is like the easiest shit to pace. Torchbearer, because it's basically Mouse Guard, same thing. Real easy. Real easy. In a dungeon crawl game, you can take breaks when your characters do. Right? The pacing is often in their hands anyway, rather than yours. A long rest is a great time to do whatever you need to do. Visit the bathroom, vape a moment, whatever works for you. Let the game help you with that. Now, in a looser narrative, in a game that's not as structured, you're gonna have to be more on guard. This kind of game, and I'm thinking things like Vampire or Apocalypse World, games that tend to flow kind of more organically, they need a closer eye on the action. And what I'll often do is try to tie pacing to events in the game, right? And when pacing happens, it's more often than not about taking a break or moving on. It's about hitting a beat in the game and saying, we're done. Or it's time for a new thing. It's rarely a good idea to break to a new scene in the midst of a conflict or a battle. Now, not always. Dogs in the Vineyard does this great, right? I roll, I raise, it's 2 days later, right? That can be really fun. Use it sparingly. But it's only because the grittiness of a situation matters most when you're in those conflicts. But what you need is a matter of intuition and mechanical awareness. You need to learn a feel for the doneness of the moment and move on when you get there. And you don't have to do this alone. Ask your players. I love saying to players, does this feel done? Right? Are we done now? You can ask your players, is there anything else that anyone wants to do or learn in this moment? You can ask your players, should we move on? I really want to stress here that something you asked earlier is a warning flag for me. This is a warning flag. So you said in your question, you want to keep your players engaged and entertained. And then I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again and again, it's not your job to entertain your players. It's not your job any more than it's their job to do the same for you. You're not there to entertain them. You're not there to engage them. Depending on the game you're playing, you might be there to challenge them, certainly, to be a fan of their characters, to create a believable world, but there's no RPG in which you're meant to keep them entertained all by your lonesome. So instead, look to your actual goals as a GM and do that job. Pacing will, with a little luck and some work, emerge from that. The purpose of pacing is to explore precisely as much of the present narrative as is interesting for everyone at the table. No more, no less. It's a hard thing to do because that's going to vary for individual folks. I might engage harder on some things than others. You might want to dig in where I might get bored and want to move on. And then, as with all unknown things in role-playing games, ask your players. Give them a chance to tell you if they're ready to move on. Teach them how to let you know when the pacing is getting slow or is too fast. If the game doesn't have a clear indicator, you're going to need to work together to pace it. What you want ultimately is the players to start asking you for scenes. That's when you know that they've started to invest themselves in that process. You want them to feel comfortable saying, hey, so when we're done with this fight with the goblins, which I know is Naja's thing, when Naja is done fighting the goblins, and I'm into that, we're having a fun time, but when that's done, can we have a scene where I get to talk to the Prince of Caresia? Because I really want to see how that conversation goes now that Gorthon the Unknown is free from the prison of Gruul. Because the prison was a big deal, like the last time, we haven't talked to them in a while. Can I have that scene? Pacing is a group effort. Don't let your players put it all on you. Invite them to let you know when they want to move on and when they want to stay a moment and explore. Ultimately, though, look to your game. Mechanisms exist to pace the game whether they mean to directly or not. Dungeons and Dragons, Mold Day Edition Dungeons and Dragons particularly, has torches, rations, and random encounters to pace the game for you. You don't have to think about pacing. Mouse Guard, Torchbearer, paced automatically. If you want a game with really good built-in pacing that gives you opportunities to move on or dig in, to expand or contract that action, but still gives you that framework, check out Blades in the Dark. It does pacing in a really great way. So that's pacing. You're going to learn it as you practice, but you don't have to do it alone. Look to the mechanisms, look to your players. They will help you. Sound good? Sounds good to me. This has been episode 32 of Office Hours, a call-in GM advice show. Thank you so much for coming. A special thank yous to everybody who's ever submitted a question to Office Hours. You're why this is possible. We're coming up on the end of the year. I'm not going to be taking an intentional holiday break, so we'll be back next week with more Office Hours. We'll keep it going. But I would like to bring up that if you are finding yourself at PAX South at the end of January, I'm going to invite you to join me for Office Hours Live. It's going to be, as the kids say, lit, fam. So be there if you can. And if you can't, you can participate in Office Hours in the usual fashion by joining me on my website, www.adam-kobold.com. Click that Office Hours link, fill out that form, get in on that action. I will answer your questions just like I did today. And I will see you next week for episode 33 and some more of this sweet, sweet GM business. Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a good one.